So I figured out about Armor Fighter back when I was in middle school. And basically, I figured it out from a kid who was playing the game in computer class instead of doing his homework. Now, this kid became instantly popular, I guess, because essentially nobody knew what this game was. Armor Fighter had no type of promotion, and at the time, and even till this day, it was still a pretty fun game to play, especially in a school setting where you were with all your friends and you could easily play with your friends in a team battle mode without anybody else. Because let's say you have 8 friends, you can easily play with each other, and that's more fun than playing with random toxic people. In fact, people don't normally like starting off Armor Fighter by themselves because they have to deal with a whole bunch of people who already played the game for years. If you play with your friends, it's easier to adapt and learn from the game, learn new mechanics and learn from your mistakes, and learn from other people who played the game as well longer than you have. So the kid that introduced the game became instantly popular for a little bit. How popular can you really be for playing a video game? Now, at the time, that kid didn't really want to tell me what Armor Fighter was, and I didn't really know what it was because I wasn't really part of the cool crowd or whatever until later on. Because what happened was, he eventually told me about the game, and I eventually got better than all of them, because number one, I was the first person to buy Astros, which is now called RC. I was the first person to ever buy that because I actually had the money. And after that, the minute I bought something, people started "Oh, what did you buy? What did you buy?" Or they're trying to look at my inventory and all that stuff. And I actually ended up getting my item sold by a kid who basically I left to go to the bathroom, and he sold my my frosting set. And I didn't know what happened until I looked in my gift box, and I got really mad at him. I eventually ended up just, letting it go because it really wasn't that big of a deal. Because if I fight in my school, I would get expelled, so I let it go. Now, this story is really getting backtracked, and because I like to talk about side stuff a lot. But I guess my point of this video is to talk about Rumble Fighter and why I kind of just feel sadness whenever I play it. So basically, when I was in middle school, I used to love playing this game. I used to drop $10 every single day on it. And I used to just love supporting the company. Back on OG Planet, the Game Masters actually interacted with the community, and they actually cared for us. And even if the developers never cared for us, the Game Masters did. And again, back in the day, it was really a fun game because, it was kind of new. It wasn't brand new. Obviously, it came out in 2006 or something. But it was, still pretty fun to play. And at the time, the community didn't really understand the backstage of everything. What I mean by that is we didn't know about mnemonics and what they were doing or their role in the game. We just thought that everything was running fine, everything was okay, until bugs started getting into the game, and the developers never really fixed the bugs, and that's when we started to figure out, wait a minute, OG Planet or the publishers don't control the game, the developers do, and the developers aren't doing their job. And that's when, the community really started to figure out, we really started to put two and two together, and we figured out that this is a dying game. Because number one, we don't even know what engine this game is made out of. Number two, the updates are consisting of simply boxes, right? There is no real... Every time there is a real update, with an actual item in it, it's either in a box or it costs an extremely high amount of karats that would only be obtainable if you hack the game to gain those karats, or in a hard-ass boss mode that would take either hacks or hours of grinding. And even hours of grinding wouldn't work. For example, Harlem Defense War, you could not win that unless you had so much Verticoins. So, essentially, the development side of this game is dead. And this was not the case in OG Planet, because in OG Planet, everything was kind of okay. You had game masters that were running events all the time. You had not as much DDoS. You had, like, the developers were actually implementing player suggestions. And, I actually don't know what happened, like why everything suddenly just went to a downfall. But every time I just look at the game now, I'm like, wow, I really spent so much time playing this shit. And I still play it though, because, it's like my childhood game. I don't spend as much money on it anymore. I'm more of an investor now, but it's like, wow, this game has no development. Like most of the recent updates were just like recolored shit. Guys, I don't know like almost anything about like game development, but I know that it really isn't that hard to recolor something. I think it's literally just moving a slider like up and down. Like that's literally what it is. So if they only add recolored items in an update, that means that all they did was move a slider up and down and put that shit in the game. That's so simple. You can add recolored items with other content. And you know how this game is dead when the Korean version, because normally MMOs, the Korean version is ahead. The Korean version Gym Fighter is caught up to us. Like, we're the same update. So they only have a few items that we don't have, which means that there is no development. There is nothing really. The only thing that we don't have is the family system. I think that's what it's called. And maybe a couple maps and maybe a couple titles and stuff like that. But realistically, it isn't that much. It's basically like when a manga or a comic book or whatever catches up to the original show. It's like there's nothing. Like, you have to stop development because there's nothing. You haven't produced anything. So my point is, matter of fact, I have no point for this video. This is just me rambling on and just talking about how disappointed I am with this game, because there is no development. There is no game master presence. Like, the only time game masters come online is when they have to like run an event or something, and then they just log off automatically. Back on OG Planet, game masters actually played frequently, and it was fun to play with them. They gave out rewards all the time, randomly. And there was actually, community ran admins. And that was very fun. That was a very fun thing. And the closest we ever got to that with Red Fox was the Discord mod. And realistically, they never even announced the Discord mods. Like, they only announced one, and then they closed the Discord server. And that's one thing, like, we don't have as much mods or GMs, like actual paid employees, to help run the game. And that's pretty much the sad part. Even a lot of artists and YouTubers left Promo Fighter. Even when it was on OG Planet, we had a couple of fun YouTubers who actually played the game and